In the first 5 years, Petersburg Home for Ladies expanded from 407 Harrison Street to include 407, 405, and 401 Harrison Street buildings. Still, by 1936, when it was proposed a new building be constructed for the ladies' home, it was not without foreboding. The Dust Bowl of the Midwest and the seemingly global financial depression rallied against this vision, and yet, amidst the uncertainty of the times, it was decided that expansion must take place. In July 1936, local builder Benjamin Franklin Keeler proposed a $26,780 new construction project, which was soon ratified by the Board of Directors. Originally born in Newark, New Jersey in 1879, Ben Keeler settled in Dinwiddie around 1910 when he married Nellie Florence Perkinson. There they raised 3 children before moving to 537 West Washington Street in Petersburg in the 1930s. Many buildings in Petersburg were modeled after the traditional style of Williamsburg, Virginia. Photographer Francis Benjamin Johnston, who lived from 1864 to 1952, captured images of Virginia for the Carnegie Collection of the National Library of Congress. This image of unidentified house front steps, Petersburg, Dinwiddie County, Virginia, is an example of architecture modeled after the Ludwell Paradise House in Williamsburg. Originally constructed in 1629, the Ludwell Paradise House was in disrepair by the 1920s, until Reverend W.A.R. Goodwin took his post as rector of Williamsburg's Bruton Parish Church. Reverend Goodwin originally held the same position in the late 1800s. However, it had been 2 decades since he returned to Williamsburg. Noting the drastic deterioration of the historic buildings, Reverend Goodwin elicited the support of John D. Rockefeller Jr., and by 1926, restoration had begun on the Ludwell Paradise House. Thus, the restoration of Williamsburg began, creating what we today call Colonial Williamsburg. As an experienced builder, Benjamin Franklin Keeler was familiar with the restoration efforts in Williamsburg. His 1936 proposal to the Petersburg Home for Ladies Board of Directors was for a 20-room fireproofed brick home on the Fillmore Street lot adjacent to the Harrison Street buildings, modeled after the Ludwell Paradise House of Williamsburg, Virginia, in keeping with the local architecture of the day being featured in Petersburg. The building committee consisted of Mrs. Mary Friend White, Mrs. Lucy Fanshawe, Mrs. Mary Lightfoot, Mrs. Kate Field, and Mrs. Conway Gray. Construction was completed by March 1937. An anecdotal tale is told of residents of Petersburg Home for Ladies reaching out to Principal James G. Scott of Anna P. Bowling Junior High, located across the street, and instructing him to assign students to maintain the flower beds. While Mr. Scott explained that such was outside of his authority, it is nonetheless a great story which exemplifies the pride each lady took in her new home. Petersburg Deputy Fire Marshal Samuel Steiner's sentiments were expressed at the December 1937 Board of Directors meeting in a letter which he had written to Chief Miller. Quote, "Pleased to report things much different from last year, from a 2-story wood frame building to a fire brick 2-story building, comfortable and cheerful, and with the ladies happy." Unquote. For the next 2 decades, the Fillmore Street house was filled with laughter, memories, and the joy of living. Those who walked the halls saw changes in fashion, war bonds, telephone service, and innumerable trends which would come and go. Though the world was changing, The future of Petersburg Home for Ladies was as steadfast as the foundation of their new brick building on Fillmore Street.